Hello, everybody. This is Mike. I go by Majique on What If Sports, and you're listening to the very first episode of This, That, and the Other. This show will interview coaches across the Gridiron Dynasty worlds, and hopefully we can get some insight into some of their tips and tricks and how they pull off the wins that they do. I'm going to be the first one interviewed, so I'm breaking the ice. And the format of the interviews will go like this. Basically, I have 50 or so preset questions, and the selection of those questions will be determined by the previous coach that is interviewed. So, for instance, today at the end of the show, I will identify 10 numbers. Those numbers will then identify the questions that will be asked for the next coach. Now, to make sure that nobody knows what the questions will be and to keep things random, the questions will be randomized each week. And then how they land, according to those numbers, those will be the questions asked. So hopefully you followed me with that one. But anyway, the basic questions are going to be name, age, location, married, kids, that type thing. That's a given. That's going to be on each and every one. The other questions, the other 10, should be unique each and every week. And of course, it's understandable there will be some repeats. But let's start today with me. So here we go. Again, my name is Mike. I am 58 and I'm located in Arkansas. I am married and I have four kids, and got quite a passel of grandbabies as well. I enjoy What If Sports quite a bit. Been playing for about 15 years on and off. I have played more than just Gridiron Dynasty. I dabbled in baseball a little bit and basketball, but I always find myself coming back to the Gridiron Dynasty aspect. Now to the randomized questions. These are the ones that I just randomly threw out 10 numbers, hit the randomizer, and the first question that came up is, do you play any other What If sports? And yes, which ones? I've already answered that one. The next one is, how did you come up with your username? Well, my username is Majique, and I've had that ever since I was a senior in high school. It was just given to me from some of the DJ stuff I did, and we really talked about it. The first time I can recall was in French class, and Miss Woodruff, the French teacher, got tired of us running our mouth in class and said it's Majique, Majique, which isn't a French word, but it stuck. So that's been my nickname, if you will, for the last 40 plus years. And one of my grandsons actually has that as his legal middle name. So that's how I got that. The other question that pops up is, how often do I recruit a player knowing I'm going to change his position? That's kind of tough, actually. I don't know that I've ever intentionally gone in with the mindset of recruiting a player knowing I'm going to change his position, other than maybe finding a tight end that's got some really good strengths, some good blocking, good technique, not too worried about his speed or his hands. So that would kind of put him off the charts from some of the other coaches looking at him. And I have been known to take a player like that and convert him to a running back. He will lose some of his technique, some of his speed, and even a bit of his blocking, if I recall. But more times than not, for the purpose of being a fullback, he's a better candidate or a recruit than an actual running back when you do a comparison of those core stats. So I don't know that I make it a habit. I have done it, but I don't do that very often intentionally. More times than not, it's a fallback, a safety net, if you will, if recruiting kind of goes whack and my plans get snagged by higher level coaches or even coaches who may be closer to a particular recruit. I have found myself going in that direction. Which of the levels is my least favorite? I would have to say D3, primarily because there's so little input that you can do as a coach. You basically set your roster and your game plan and your practice formations and hope for the best, essentially. I mean, you don't have the ability to specialize the positions to get certain players into certain position to do certain things. So, yeah, least favorite I would say is D3. What is my philosophy on practice time? Does it change as I move up in higher levels? Definitely. Division two is more geared toward core stats, I believe. You want to get the best overall rated player on the field at all times. Practice time really doesn't do much for you from an aspect of team play, because at that level, it just seems to me that, or I should say it's been my experience, that the better player, as far as core stats, will outdo a lesser quality player. And even if that lesser quality player has a higher formation IQ, it just seems that the higher core talent will even outdo that player that's got a better IQ for formation, which of course comes from your practice time. Now, as far as going up in higher levels, how do I change that? Oh, that's a good one. Division 1A, a lot of the core talent, is basically at a very similar level. So that's where your practice time comes in to be more of an item that you would use to set yourself apart from a similar team. So I put more emphasis on practice time at the higher levels just because the cores are pretty standard across the board at your upper level. D1AA, that's, that base, well, I would say I base it on the team and looking where the team is, looking at the philosophy that I'm trying to employ. And basically it changes from team to team. But in a nutshell, yeah, I practice very little formation stuff at D2 and emphasize it more at the D1 level. And this is a good time for us to take a quick break.
Do you have a small beaver? Or maybe a big beaver? If you're a beaver owner, you'll know that there's nothing worse than an unruly or unkempt beaver. But with new Beaver Retriever, you can be assured of total beaver control.
Beaver Retriever. Make your beaver come when you want.
Ah, good beaver. You love being stroked, don't you?
And welcome back. What do I like best about Gridiron Dynasty? Well, it gives me an opportunity to kind of de-stress from the day's activities or get away from whatever is going on in the world. And right now, the big thing is coronavirus. So, everybody's sequestered to their homes or whatever the case may be. And a lot of us don't have a lot of time to spend on GD like some people do. But I enjoy it as a way to get away from everything and just get involved in sports, especially football. I really enjoy. And the aspect that you're dealing with humans and not Sims, that's really key. I enjoy that aspect because it causes the game to have changes from one week to the other. You get to run into different coaches who employ different philosophies and have different ways of coaching. Whereas with a sim-based format where all you're playing is a computer, it doesn't take too long to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I enjoy GD as a method to get away and enjoy a sport I like. All right. Do you get up in the middle of the night to check on your recruiting? Yes, I not every night. I have in the past, and I'm sure I will in the future, get up in the middle of the night and maybe make some recruiting actions or see how a recruiting action worked out for me, especially if it's a tight battle or an important battle for a particular position that I really need to fill, or if it's something where I've got a huge team to fill, a huge, we're talking 25 or 30 scholarships in one season. You need to stay on top of it because you may have some undecideds that you could snag that would fall to somebody else while you're sleeping. So in rare situations, I have been known to get up in the middle of the night to check on recruiting. And what's my preferred offense? if I'm starting a team from scratch, I generally try to go with Pro Set. I find that it gives me a little more versatility, especially for those years when I do not have a quality quarterback where I can just air it out. Hopefully, I've made enough recruiting decisions early on to get some running backs that can run the ball in that case until my redshirt quarterback works his way up the system to where he starts and he's good enough to be a passing quarterback. But usually I tend to stay with the Pro Set offense for that reason. Now, I won't shy away from the Notre Dame box or even the I. I would say my least favorite is probably shotgun, just because it limits your running attack. You can run a wide receiver, you can run a quarterback, but yeah, I like to have the versatility that the Pro Set provides. Where did I go to school? Army brat, so literally all over the world. I've been in school in Virginia and Alabama, Kansas, even Germany, and graduated in Virginia. Joined the Air Force and spent 20 years in the Air Force, and then decided to get a degree through online schooling at Eastern New Mexico University. So that's the last school I was formally enrolled in. And here's the last one, folks. What is my dream Gridiron Dynasty coaching job? Well, I'm a huge Virginia Tech fan, a huge Arkansas fan. But as far as Gridiron Dynasty goes, I'd have to say Penn State, primarily for the fact that it's an elite school, but more importantly, it sits in a hotbed of recruiting opportunity. It's just chock full of not only recruits, but good recruits. Sure, there's, some other schools that you have to contend with when it comes to recruiting, but for the most part, you basically get to pick and choose at that area of the recruiting world. So I'd say Penn State, definitely. Well, that's the 10 questions, and I'm going to go ahead right now and make it official and throw out 10 questions for the next coach, and I will have him answer those questions. And in the future, by the way, I hope to have the next coach lined up so that we can actually identify who that coach will be and hopefully drum up some interest. As far as next week's questions, and I say next week, so I plan to do this on a weekly basis. We're going to go with number 7, good old lucky number 7, 10, 13, 24, 29, 33, 35, 40, 41, and let's hit 50. Why not? So 7, 10, 13, 24, 29, 33, 35, 40, 41, 50. Sounds kind of like a lotto here going on. But those will be the questions. And just prior to the interview, I will hit the randomizer and we'll find out what that coach has to answer then. So until next time, you've been listening to This, That, and the Other. I'm Coach Majique, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for listening.